Ferrari is supplying gearboxes and power units. And from what I read is it's going to take them a decade before they can come up with their own power units. And so I think they might have a bit of a head start because they can go right into the new regulations, but a decade's a long time.
Yeah.
That could be 2 full reg changes. Like this could be an all electric, competition by that point, based on the speed and direction in which we're going right now, right? Going from, fully combustible fuels to half and half, or I guess 80-20 to now 50-50, right? So like, who knows what's going to happen in that amount of time, but I hope they have a head start.
It's lights out and away we go.
Welcome everyone to F1 True North, the Canadian Formula One podcast. It is the final episode. The final episode, guys.
For the year.
I'm
The
joined.
2024 season, yeah. It's not that last.
Yeah. Okay. Relax. It is the final season for 2024. I'm joined by 2 of the greatest, if not the greatest, hosts in for F1 True North history. We have Tomas and we have the great Drew. We are missing the voice of reason, Walker, tonight for undisclosed reasons. But yeah, we're back. Final episode, guys. It's been a fantastic year, but just like any other year in Formula One, FIA always has to end it and prepare us for possible crap for the next season. So I'm gonna start this off with, and I'm sure like people who are listening to us and probably would want to have us talk about the rule changes that are happening 2025. We'll start off with there are going to be heat hazard declarations. So what does that mean? What that means is that just like the race that happened a few years ago when I think it was Ocon that threw up in his helmet because of the heat in the Singapore Grand Prix, and where Lance Stroll needed to be helped out of his car, so on and so forth. The FIA has now decided that for any temperatures that are exceeding 30.5 Celsius during a race weekend, teams would now have to add a cooling system in the car for the drivers. So what that would mean is there would be a weight increase of 5 kilograms for the car, yet again, which, the teams are already struggling with the weight and the way the car performs. And just to keep the drivers more comfortable and have the racing a little bit more viable per se, not to the point of almost killing the drivers. So with that, Drew, let's start off with you. What do you think about the new heat hazard declaration from the FIA?
Listen, I'm all for keeping the drivers safe. I understand that just like any other sport and any other athlete, these guys need to be taken care of. That's why we put the halos in. That's why we have better helmets. That's why we have the bladder around the gas tank. That's why all these safety measures come into play. And every year we find another way to make things safer. I'm all for it. At what point is it overreaching? Like, have we had any issues with this before? We have one race a season. Does that necessitate having like a permanent fixture in the cars full time? And like now we have to change regulations. Now all the engineers have to do a deep dive for like one race out of the season. My thought process is don't fucking go there, or maybe go there at a different time of the year, or there's other solutions, I think, than taking this step. That's just my quick 2 cents. Listen, like I said, I'm all for the safety of the drivers. I just don't know at what cost is this going to have for a very low benefit, for a one race benefit.
Yeah, I tend to agree with Drew. As we talked earlier in the season, I think this is the only, or Singapore is the only race that we had in regards to like extreme heat that this actually has happened to the drivers, where they were nauseous and needed help getting out of the car and whatnot. I agree with Drew. I don't think, again, safety, all that good stuff, yes, I'm all for it, but for one race of the whole season for one track, don't go there. Switch, go at a different time. Have a night race. Work around it. It just I don't really see the benefit of this either. I think it's honestly kind of useless now. If we would have 3, 4, 5 tracks like that within the season that with extreme heat and stuff like that to that point what we had, that's a different story. But for one track, I think it's a little bit ridiculous to go that route. That's just my opinion though.
Is it just one track though? So let's break this down. So we got Singapore. We're gonna have what? All the Middle Eastern races. You got Abu Dhabi. You got
Bahrain.
Bahrain. Let's go even to Brazil and Sao Paulo. Like that's definitely a possibility that it can be too hot there.
But
where else we got?
in all of these races, how many of them was extreme as Singapore? I think Singapore was an extreme example. Other races, drivers didn't really have too much of an issue with the heat, from what I've seen.
Correct. Yeah. No, I agree with you. But like, I'm just trying to think, like, is there a big enough reason? Like, is it that hot in Austin at the time? Like Mexico City? Like, I'm just trying to think, like, if it's obviously like, listen, the FIA, they're not idiots. You know what I mean? Like, they do have some thought process. Are they the best at thinking all the time? No. Is their decision-making skills questionable at best? Absolutely. But I do think that they've put some thought process in that, and obviously, like, they've talked to other people. Some consultants have come in to come up with rule changes like this. Someone's thought about it. And so there has to be a reason why. I just don't know if it's a big enough reason. Like, the guys always complain, like, yeah, that was a hot race. And then they move the fuck on. You know what I mean? Okay, cool. It's a tough race. It's a tough race every year.
100%. But the thing is, like, my 2 cents on this one is I feel like the FIA is now just like creating a way for the other teams to add additional weight, add additional cooling, add additional, comforts for the driver. But what they could have done, and hear me out on this one, is scheduling, honestly. Like, if there are certain times of the year, yes, we understand, like, I came from the Philippines. I grew up there for 25 years, and it's pretty hot there, and it's pretty close to Singapore. But there are certain times of the year wherein it would be less humid, later towards the night, and all these other, factors. I feel like it's more like a scheduling thing at this point, and the FIA is like, you know what? In order to avoid all of that, let's just put cooling stuff, cooling system in the car. So does that mean, do we need to put heaters also during the Las Vegas race, or also in the Mexico race? So I'm like, I really don't understand. So, and I'm sure the drivers are going to be complaining because now, amongst like the weight, like for example, Alpine, that's like struggling with the weight of their cars. You add another 5 kilos into that. What are they driving now? An Oldsmobile? What are they driving? Like an old Mustang or something?
A big Cutlass.
Oh, there you go. Or a Continental, like, or an Impala. Like, there could be a lot of things. But that's my point, though. Like, I feel like the FIA is just creating this like stopgap or this like band-aid solution, and then let the teams deal with it, because we've done our part. Now they have to figure it out.
I think too that like the FIA likes to make these small changes to give the engineers other things to work around.
Yeah.
Like the FIA always gives a set of rules and regulations, and then the engineers take it and they do their best to interpret it to their benefit. Right. So like, they're like, oh, well, you didn't say we couldn't do this. And so like, now they're just giving people, to your point, Ed, is that like, now these engineers have another cooling thing. So like, yeah, it's going to cool down the driver, but like, how can we get this to also cool down the engine? Or how do we get this to do this instead? Or can we turn this into some aero piece that helps us with downforce, or whatever the case may be? So I think that there's always things that the FIA changes that allows these engineers, who are arguably some of the smartest engineers on the planet, to figure out loopholes to make things different, especially because we're still waiting until the big 2026 reg change. Yeah. So next year it's like, what can we do to kind of throw another whatever in the pot to give these guys something to think about over the summer break? Because these guys have been prepping for this car for a while, and now they just threw a huge wrench in it.
Exactly, towards the end of the season. And on that note, and this is another update that they've done, and I'm sure you guys are going to be equally as cheesed, if not even more. there are new DRS changes for the cars. So in its current setting right now, the DRS mode has or creates like an opening of about 10 to 15 millimeters in the rear wing. Because of how McLaren had multiple issues about the flexi wings, as they were talking about that a lot, they did not deem it as illegal. It was questionable, but now because of that, now they are adjusting the opening of the DRS from 10 to 15 millimeters to 9.4 to 13 millimeters. So what does that do? That gap of, or that advantage of 20 to 30 kilometers per hour is now going to be almost close to nothing. So again, just like as you said, Drew, here comes the FIA throwing something additional for the teams. And yeah, let's see how they can adjust to it. So what do you guys think about that?
It can't be almost nothing. Because like at the current numbers that they see right now, they, on average anywhere between 15 and 30 kilometers an hour is what they've been experiencing in the most recent season. Yeah. Like there has been seasons, especially with like the new regs, like when they came out in 2021 or 2022, whenever those regs changed, we saw the DRS not do too much. Like I remember them getting like 10 to 12 kilometers an hour. And like, I can imagine it, if it's going to go to something, it would probably go back to that. Otherwise, why have the DRS? Like if they're going to take it away completely, it doesn't make any sense to have them fiddle around with all this nonsense in order to lose speed, right? So like I understand that a smaller gap is going to reduce drag reduction, which translates to lower top speeds. And even when DRS is engaged, if it's minimal, that's okay with me. Because if it's closer racing and everything's better, that's fine. I'm okay with that. But the DRS does help in a big way. Like the DRS came about because they wanted more overtakes. It was strictly an entertainment piece. And, what they didn't see coming was the DRS train stuff. So if this is going to stop that DRS train stuff and like might, kind of slow that down a little bit, amp up the competition, I'm all for it. We're not going to know until we see it. And what does this mean? Is someone else like McLaren did this year? Is someone else going to like figure out a new little trick or whatever to kind of work around that? Are they going to take the new regulations, find a loophole and figure out how to do whatever, just like McLaren did this year? Probably. And I would argue that Adrian Newey over at Aston Martin might have a good shot at that because he's a sneaky little snake like that.
I like that. Tomas, what do you think?
So from what you're saying in regards to the whole DRS thing, why are you doing that? Just essentially to get closer racing, I guess, from what I understand?
Yeah, that's right.
Again, I'm kind of with Drew. Like, you introduced their DRS to have more overtakes, but now I guess the cars got too fast or something. Now you're taking it away. Now you want it based off skill. Like, the way the FIA functions right now, especially, with temperature change that we just spoke about and the DRS rule, it's questionable. I get it. They're always thinking ahead, how to improve safety, whatever. But are we at a point where it's getting a little bit too ridiculous? I know they're trying to improve and make it more entertaining, but it seems like, for example, 5 years we're going to do this, and the next 5 years we're going to basically revert back to our old ways. So, I don't know. I don't know how I feel about this. I'm partially excited because I think a lot more skill is going to go into this in regards to overtakes. Hopefully not as much as DRS trains anymore. But again, will it be too much of a gap that essentially there's going to be no overtaking or very little overtaking on the DRS zones, right? So that's where I have an issue with, and I don't know how to feel about this. It's we'll have to wait till next year to really see, but I don't know. I think it's getting a little bit too much, and I think they're kind of stepping over their line, in my opinion.
Well, I think back to my previous point too, though. Like, I think the FIA, they just need to do something, right? Because like if they don't do anything, then this season's the new season 2025 is gonna start right where 24 left off. And not that that's a bad thing. I thought it was hyper competitive. I think it was awesome. If you listen to any of the interviews that Christian Horner made, that Max Verstappen made after all the award ceremonies, they think 2025 is going to be an absolutely killer season because Ferrari's caught up, McLaren's caught up, Red Bull is now dropping back into that. Mercedes was looking real nice at the end there. So like if you got those top 4 teams now all gunning for W's, that changes the game, right?
Oh,
Like if you
yeah.
took out all of Max's wins at the start of this year because Red Bull was still dominating, this would be a very different season. And so if 2025 starts off with, who knows, like anyone's game, and if Aston Martin picks up their socks with Newey, having his hand at the design game there, I think that it could be a 5-horse race, which changes everything. And that's ultimately what they're looking for. And I think that they might do these DRS things and put these engineering changes into it now so that next year they hit the ground running. And it's not unlike the FIA for them to go back on something. Like they might do this DRS change and then 3 races into the season, they're like, just kidding. We're going to go back to the old regs because they need the entertainment. Because like FIA is in cahoots with Liberty, and let's get real, this is all for entertainment. And if it's going to make this unentertaining, then they're going to switch that up real quick. Yeah,
Yeah,
money.
it's all money, all money. And you know what? Like, come to think of it, Drew, I love that point that you mentioned earlier, that from the cooling system we're in, the engineers, once they find out that okay, we need to add this in, now they're gonna figure out, okay, what can we do in order to like elevate this additional regulations that we have. Like for example, back in the day, I don't know if you guys ever remember, this is just too far back, like the F duct. For example, they used to have like a small duct, a small hole at the nose of the car, and then if they put their knee in a cover, right in the cockpit, they would make it additionally faster. And then the other one too from Mercedes a few years ago, where they would push and pull the steering wheel, which would add a little bit more camber. Yeah, that's another thing too. So who knows? Maybe if the cooling system might add your point, might add cooling to the car, might add cooling to the tires, could be cooling to anywhere. Could be another thing too. And then with the new DRS system, I mean, McLaren was able to pull off the flexi wings this year without getting penalized for it. Like, who knows? And on that one, based on like designs and whatnot, Adrian Newey, now in Aston Martin for 2025. Do you think, based on his illustrious career of absolutely fantastic designs, threading the line of legal to illegal to kind of like sketchy at that point, but he always produces fantastic designs in order to win. Do you think Aston Martin is going to come back after their most abysmal season, from recent history?
You know what? I wish I wish yes. I wish the answer would be yes, just because I like Alonso, I like Aston Martin, and Adrian Newey. Who knows? We all know he's a freaking genius, and he might pull a white rabbit out of his hat. So I'm really hoping, but we will really get to see it. I think the first 2 to 3 races in the new season, we'll see what they're capable of. Like I said, as much as I would like for them to kill it right from the start, realistically, I don't really see that happening. Too early to tell. Do I have high hopes? Yeah, I do. Do I think Alonso and Aston Martin and Adrian Newey are going to be way more competitive than they were, this year, 2024, and they're going to be more competitive in 25? Yeah, I do. Does the other driver need to leave the team? Yeah, he does, because with what's his name, with Stroll at the driving seat as well, it's kind of pushing down the team. Do I see that happening? No, I don't, because since his father owns the team, he's going to be in that seat, and Alonso is essentially going to continue pulling the Aston Martin train.
Yeah, you nailed it. Like, ultimately, Adrian Newey's a great car designer, the best of all time. Let's call him what he is. He's the greatest. But I don't think their amount of time that he's going to have at that Aston Martin is going to be able to shift gears that fast. I think the other teams are just too far ahead. Like, they were slipping backwards by the end of the season, right? Like, I don't think at any point in time did Aston Martin move forwards at all in the 2024 season. Do I think they're going to come out of the gate stronger? But then all the other top teams all have the same amount of time to move forward as well, right? So, like, unless somebody pulls out an absolute crapshoot, and whatever they do over the winter break is not going to be productive for their car, I don't see them being in the top 4. I think they're going to still be that 5th team, but I think that they're going to have a good framework for them to work on. And I don't know. I don't know if Fernando Alonso and Lance Stroll are the two guys to take an Adrian Newey car to the top. I think Fernando Alonso at one point would have been, and I don't think that Lance Stroll at any point in time in his career could have brought them to the top. So you have a guy who's on his way out, and you have a guy who's never going up, and you can't bank on either one of those guys to take this team to the next level. I think Carlos Sainz would have been a great fit for that second seat, but to your point, Thomas, that second seat is forever going to be Lance Stroll's unless he gets bored with Formula One. And even at that point, I can imagine his dad just selling the team. Just be like, my kid doesn't want his seat anymore, so I'm selling the team. You know what I mean? And it's too bad because Aston Martin had a great run, and I think that last season they were looking very promising, especially at the beginning of the season. And I really liked the car when Aston Martin came out, and they had that super nice, English racing green, and I like everything about the team. You know what I mean? And I just, it's been too bad watching them kind of slip away a little bit, but I do have high hopes for them. I think Adrian Newey was the best thing that they could have done. And as long as he still wants to win, which I'm sure he does, that's why he took the job. Adrian Newey he's an old guy. He could very well retired a very wealthy, happy man and lived all of his dreams, racing boats, aeronautical engineer, all the stuff that he wants to do on his free time. He could have very well done that, but he wanted to stick around. He wanted a new project, and that was Aston Martin. They obviously gave him something or promised him something that no one else could. So that's where he jumped ship, and here we are.
Yeah, it's pretty sad. Like I know, Drew, you and I had like the same hopes and dreams for Fernando Alonso at the start of the 2023 season. Man, he was killing it.
Murder.
I was in the Philippines at that time, and I was looking tremendously for different bootleg Aston Martin jerseys, if I can find one, or if even just like the real ones too over there. But it's like I couldn't find anything. And yeah, since then it was just been like nothing. Since was it like after the summer break or something like that, wherein it's just been, they've been consistent at failing. They've been consistent being in the mid pack of everything. So I don't know. I do have high hopes because, Papa Stroll has been on a rampage of just like hiring the best talent to put around his son and Alonso. So 2025, yes, might be a little bit too early to say, because they're probably not going to be looking into that. His gardening leave, I think, doesn't end till like the first quarter of 2025, so he won't actually be able to touch the 2025 car. Probably
to
we'll
think
see
that guy's not at home making sketches right now for that Aston Martin car. You're crazy.
No, he will be. He will be.
He's definitely working on it.
Yeah.
But hold on. Before you move on, because I know you want to move on from this, but I'm going to pull you right back real quick.
Go ahead.
Right now, well, as of now, Aston Martin ended the year at 94 points. Yep. And Alpine ended at 65. So let's call that a 30-point spread. Now, without Alpine's absolute unicorn happenings in Brazil, when they got like huge points on that race, Alpine would have been nowhere close. Haas probably would have ended up in 6th place. But my point is that Mercedes is at 468 points, and then Aston Martin's in 5th place at 94 points, and then the next closest person, let's say Alpine didn't get those points, the next one would have been Haas at 58. So let's call it 60 points. So that's a 35-point spread. And then ahead of them is like a 290-point spread. You know what I mean? So like they're comfortably in that middle ground where nobody from the back of the pack's going to catch them, and they're not going to be caught or catching up to the top 4 teams. So they have a lot of work ahead of them. Like, it's not like they were just kind of nipping at the heels of those 4th place guys. Like, and Mercedes wasn't stellar. You know what I mean? Like, they had a decent season, but it wasn't a stellar season by any means, right? And they were still, like, let's call it 330 points ahead of them. That's a lot of points. Yeah. That's more points than the bottom 7 teams on the grid. Is that gap, right? So, like, I think Aston Martin has a lot of work to do, and Adrian Newey's an absolute genius, but I don't think he can turn them around that fast. That's a big spread.
It is.
No, it's going to take some time for sure for Aston Martin to come alive. Like I said, I really want them to be competitive in 2025. And like you said, Drew, you know, they might have their game up a little bit from this year, but do I see them, you know, killing, like as you said, catching up to Mercedes? No, I think they're going to shrink that gap. They might be closer, but do I see them like overtaking them? No, no chance.
Do you see any of the back markers catching up to Aston Martin if you want to look at it from the other point of view, like based on the other teams?
No.
I don't think so myself as
That's
well.
what I mean. They're in that like 5th place limbo where they're not good enough to be at the front and they're not going to get caught from the guys at the back. Like I think
So they have time.
they do have time. Yeah.
They have lots
They
of
have
time.
time. But like, how long do you want to sit half mast? Like, how long do you want to sit in that middle aisle? You know what I mean? Like, you want to be at the front of the plane or the back of the plane. I don't want the fucking aisle seat.
But you know what? I think that's a very good position now, because now they're not expected to exceed and like really compete with the top guys, but they're not gonna be in the bottom of of totem pole of the teams. So now they can test and tune whatever they want with Adrian Newey being there. Let's go nuts. I mean,
And you know
Papa
what,
Stroll's
Nor-
throwing so much money into it as well, so might as well go test and go crazy.
And normally I would say here too, like, you know, Aston Martin didn't have a 2-horse race. Like, there were never 2 guys in the race. Like, you know, you have Lance Stroll, who's barely finishing races, and then Fernando Alonso's doing his absolute best with that. But I would argue this year, it wasn't that great. Like, Fernando Alonso was constantly fighting for like 8th, 7th, 6th place at best. And like Stroll was getting that like 9th, 10th, 11th place kind of thing. So like they weren't even that far off. Like, it wasn't like, well, look at Perez and Verstappen, right? Like, that was a gap. That was a spread. Where like I think Lance Stroll and Fernando Alonso were a lot closer in that battle. And like, if they have a better car, would they consistently both get points? Yeah. Would that put them ahead of a lot of those bottom teams? Sure. But they're not getting podiums, which means they're nowhere close to even Mercedes in 4th place.
No,
So I'm back
not
to
at
that
all.
same point, right?
Yeah.
What I also kind of noticed when Alonso joined AMR, it seemed like he had that fire, that passion to, you know, go with the team and perform. And he started off like fairly strong, in my opinion. And as the races went on, and he, I guess, wasn't, you know, getting what he wanted out of the car, wasn't getting what he wanted out of the races, you could kind of see that decline almost. Now, was it through a fault of his own? I don't think so. But it just like, he almost like lost confidence in the team and the car in a sense, and just like, you know, like you said, Drew, fighting for 7th, 8th, whatever the case might be. So that's I hope that changes in the new year.
Yeah, very reminiscent of the 2008, 2009 season when he had a small stint in McLaren and went to Ferrari after. Or no, I think he went back to Renault, if I'm not mistaken on that one. Feel bad for the guy. I mean, to your point, Drew, like I think he's at the twilight of his career. He's just like, he's milking it as much as he can because of his, you know, notoriety as a two-time world champion. Maybe he's gonna try to gun for a third one in 2026. Who knows? But yeah, I agree with you. I think he's at that point now. We're in either he's gonna try it with Adrian Newey and probably
That's
walk
it.
into the
It's the
sunset.
last blast.
Yeah, I agree. Well, on that note, 2026 regs couldn't come any sooner, but we have to get through 2025. But another update for 2026. Ferrari is going to supply GM with power units for 2026. Wow. I thought they were going to come out with their own power units, but I guess not. Too soon to say. What are you guys' thoughts on this one? Ferrari being the supplier.
From what I read, so the Ferrari is supplying gearboxes and power units, and from what I read is it's going to take them a decade before they can come up with their own power units. And so I think they might have a bit of a head start because they can go right into the new regulations, but a decade's a long time.
Yeah,
that could be 2 full reg changes. Like, this could be an all electric, you know, competition by that point, you know, based on the speed and direction in which we're going right now, right? Going from, you know, fully combustible fuels to half and half, or I guess 80-20 to now 50-50, right? So like, who knows what's going to happen in that amount of time, but I hope they have a head start. That being said, I'm sure they're pumped because Ferrari is looking spicy. So if they are taking power units from anybody, I'm sure that they're really excited about that. And if anything that I read and read is true, Mercedes got that new 2026 regulations on lockdown. Whatever they got going on in that engine, that's why Alpine jumped on board, and they are pumped about it because they're like, well, we clearly can't make an engine, so let's just jump on board with Mercedes, who, you know, from what I've been hearing, has a wild head start. And on that same information, Red Bull's struggling because they're trying to put out their own engine for the first time, and they are just absolutely bombing it. So, but that's all, who knows, speculation. Like, until 2026 starts and you see these new engines, new regulations, all that kind of stuff, cars are getting a little bit shorter. They're getting lighter. They're changing the game. So like, everything's going to be up in the air. Who knows? Maybe Williams is going to be at the front of the pack. Haas is going to be fighting for W's. Who knows? Probably not, but you know.
So again, I was under the same impression, thought that GM is gonna bring their own stuff. It's kind of interesting they went with Ferrari. That's definitely gonna be put them in the competitive lead with other teams, I think. To Drew's point, you know, kind of touching back up a little bit again, cars are getting lighter, they're getting shorter. Same thing. You see where we're coming. We came from short light cars. We went to these big fat pig things on wheels. Now we're going back. So I'm excited. I hope it's gonna spice up the grid, spice up the teams, gonna bring in some more excitement, more new fans, and yeah, looking forward to that.
Bring back the V10s. Just bring back the V10s. That sound.
V10s, V8s, yes.
Nah, V10s, dude. The V10s are just like.
See, if they bring back the V10s, they're just gonna have the V10s, but it'll be like 80% electric, 20% petrol. So even if they do bring back a V10, it'll only be like a little whamp from it.
Yeah, to me, it's more about the sound than anything else.
Sure.
It's just the sound. If
you're at home watching this anyway and you're not at the race, just turn up the volume, bro. Who cares?
Yeah, true. But I miss the sound of the V10s and the V8s. So
full disclosure, didn't watch Formula One during the V10 era, so I don't miss anything.
Man, dude.
I know. I've seen the videos. I listen to the podcast, bring back V10s. I get it. But like, it's whatever. We're here. We're now. Let's whatever. You can wish upon a star, but like, why don't you just bring back the V14s? Who gives a shit?
Is there a V14?
No, I just made it up.
I thought it was like, does Drew know something I don't know? Well, guys, you know what? It was a fantastic season. I mean, I know I've said this at the start. I've said it for how many races already, but what are your final thoughts as we close down 2024 and looking forward to, what do you look forward to in the 2025 season?
Easy answer, man. Lewis Hamilton wearing red.
Yes.
It's going to be a total game changer. It's going to be so spicy when all the promo vids and all that stuff starts coming out. Q1 next year, Q2, the races start. It's going to be absolutely awesome. And I'm cool with it. Like, it's whatever. Like, I try to be as bipartisan as I can in terms of like who my favorite teams are, drivers, all that kind of stuff. We run a Formula One podcast. I can't love or hate anyone. It's whatever. You know what I mean? I just want to see good racing. That's what I'm the most excited for. And when you have, you know, arguably the best team over the last few years in Red Bull saying that they think 2025 is going to be the most competitive season, I'm here for it. So like, that's what I'm the most looking forward to. Do I think Ferrari has an advantage? Yeah, I think with their trajectory at the end of the year, add a little Lewis Hamilton spice in there, I think they got something going on. That being said, you have McLaren, who won the Constructors' Championship. As of right now, we don't know. Apparently the FIA can call that shit back. But as of right now, you have McLaren with Oscar Piastri and Lando Norris. That duo is incredible. That I would say that might be my favorite driver duo. Like, those guys are awesome. And we saw them work together this year with some real teamwork. And like, you know, Lando handing that W back and like, you know what I mean? Like they played it right this year. And like, you saw those guys hate each other as much as teammates need to hate each other, and then also work together as much as teammates need to work together to accomplish a mission. And they did it. And so I'm looking forward to that. Now you got Max Verstappen, arguably the best racer on the grid, with a a question mark beside him. Who's going there? Is it Liam Lawson? Is it Yuki Tsunoda? Those are the two big names that are coming up. It's definitely not Sergio Perez. I can tell you who it's not. And then you got Kimi Antonelli at Mercedes. So you got this new kid on the grid in a big team, right? So like this is 2025 is going to be fire. You can say what you want, but I think it's going to be lit.
Yes.
Yeah, so for my perspective, what am I most looking forward to 2025? The drama, man. The switch up in the grid. Like Lewis going to Ferrari, these new rookies coming in. It's really spicing up the playing field, right? And it's going to be very interesting to see where, our old teams go in the new season with these rookies, whether that be, McLaren, Ferrari, or Red Bull, or Aston Martin, or even Haas, right? So a lot of switch up, a lot of new faces, lots of drama. Looking forward to that. Hopefully, an explosive finish to 2025 before the new regs. That's what I'm really hoping for. I think that's what we're all hoping for as fans and as enthusiasts of the sport.
Oh yeah. I mean, look at the young drivers. Bortoleto. You have Doohan. You have Kimi Antonelli. You have Ollie Behrman. And then there's like so many changes that are happening. Liam Lawson finally has a seat. He's gonna try to prove himself even more for a full F1 season. And yeah, man, like honestly, if they continue what they started or what they ended with this year into 2025, you're right. Like Red Bull is, on the money on this one that 2025 is gonna be this season of seasons. End of regs. Everyone's now equal playing field. Now we'll find out who's the best driver, who's the best team, who's going to take it all the way to the end. But you know what? If you're looking at Lewis Hamilton, I'm going to look at my dark horse, Carlos Sainz, for Williams. I know that it's a lackluster team. I already know that. But he's bringing some really good money with him with Santander into Williams. And I'm really hoping that he'll be able to bring up that team into the level maybe of Aston Martin, taking it to Aston Martin. Too soon to say. We'll never know. But
no, we will know. We will know.
They're not gonna make it. Is that what it is?
Know. We will know. No, we're gonna find out. We will know. No, we'll never know. We will know.
Okay.
I'm pumped about the season though.
Yeah, I'm
pumped. And like the more you guys talked about it, the more excited I got. And like, you were naming off all the rookies. And like, if we consider Lawson a rookie, that's 5 to 20 drivers. That's a quarter of the grid is a rookie. That's exactly. 1 in 4 cars has a brand new driver in it. That's terrifying at the same time. Like exciting, but like there's going to be some racks.
But here's the other thing too. What if Perez leaves, Lawson and Tsunoda secures the seat, Hadjar joins the rookies, and that final race in F2 between Hadjar and Bortoleto, he lost that because of like a mechanical malfunction. So if they continue that battle, oh my God, 2025 is going to be absolutely insane. So yeah, on that note, guys, it's been a fantastic 2024 season. Walker, we're sorry that you're not here, but you know what? We'll see you in 2025. Everyone, thank you again for all of the support. But please, go into the Discord. Go on YouTube. Go on Instagram. All on the socials. You know where to hit us up. And this has been a fantastic season with you guys, and thank you for all of your support. Any final words, guys, before we sign off?
Nah, man, we'll see you guys in a couple weeks in 2025. Hell yeah.
There we go.
Peace
there
out.
We go. All right, everyone. Thank you again. Happy New Year, and we'll see you in 2025.
It's lights out and away we go.